long, but this is for notes chapter 1.2 found in your week 2 packet. So turn to that, please. And the topic for these notes is we will show how to solve multi-step equations and how do I check my work, so to make sure they are correct. So first of all, when I'm solving equations, I always want to make sure I'm going to combine my like terms. I created a little checklist here. Again, every time I use a colored pen, please use a flared colored pen also, or marker or highlighter. When I use a pencil, please, or black ink, that's your pencil. Let's see. So here I kind of created a list. Again, our goal is to isolate the variable. And these are kind of a checklist here. I want to combine my like terms first. I want variables on one side and constants on the opposite side. So here I recognize that I have like terms here using my rules of integers. I have 8x minus 6x. That gives me a 2x. Oh, that should be in pencil. 2x minus 25. So I'm combining my like terms first. Now, I have a new problem, so I'm going to now circle my variable, and I'm going to add 25 to both sides. Notice my equal signs are lined up, and whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. This goes away. I'm going to record what I have left. On this side of the equal signs, I have a 2x, and on this side, I have a negative 10. A negative 10. And now I'm going to divide by 2, because this is what my goal is to get this x by itself. So I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. And 2 divided by 2 is 1. I could write 1x, but just an x will suffice. And a negative divided by a positive is negative, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So I'm going to check my work as we did last night for homework. We checked 6. I'm going to do the same thing. This time you're going to check only, I want you to check 5 for homework. Okay. So here I'm going to write my original. I always write the original, not the simplified version, because in the event I might have made a mistake. So I'm going to focus on one side only. 8 times the answer that I got for my x, 6 times the answer that I got for my x, minus 25. I'm going to focus on one side. I'm going to insert my answer, in this case was a negative 5 and a negative 5. Using order of operations, I'm going to work each of them out. I can work with these two first. I have negative 40. A negative times a negative is a positive 30. Then a minus 25. Then I'm going to work on these here. That gives me a negative 10 minus 25, and that gives me a negative 35. So this side simplifies to 35. This side, the right side, is already simplified, so I'm going to bring that down. They match, so that means it checks, and my answer is correct. So I'm going to circle that and be so happy that I'm done correctly. Okay, next one. Here I have, again, I'm going to combine like terms. So I know I could combine this and this. And I have 17 minus 12n equals 23. Now I'm going to line up my equal sign. I use that dotted line just as a gauge. That is no longer required. Circle my variable. And that 17 is positive, so I'm going to subtract to make that a 0. And I have a negative 12n is equal to, that gives me, that's 6. Yeah, 3 gives me 20, another 3 gives me 6. Okay, then I'm going to divide by a negative 12, divide by a negative 12, and n equals a positive divided by a negative is negative, and 6 divided by 12 is 0.5, or 1/2. I'm okay with 1/2. Either one, the decimal value or the fraction, as long as you know those are the same, are equivalent, I'm happy. So now I'm going to check my work. I write the original in the event I combine like terms incorrectly. I'm going to always write the original. And I'm going to replace my n with my answer. And I had 1/2. And I'm okay with fractions for this one because I could do halves in my head. So that works out just fine. And again, I'm going to simplify the left side first. So I have 17. I got to multiply first. Half of 4 is -2. Half of -8 is -4. Continue to simplify. 17 minus 2 is 15. Minus 4. Whoa, it doesn't work. What does that mean? Did I get an answer? Oh, see, notice how here I got 11. And it doesn't match 23. That means my answer was wrong. However, before I do that, my answer was negative. I didn't include that negative here, and notice how it got caught. So I'm going to go back in. That gives me a +2, a +4. So that's 19 plus 4 is 23. Now, does that match the other side? So it does. So it was just an issue of me substituting my right value. It checks, so my answer is correct. Okay, here I have a triangle and it says the sum equals 180. Well, I know that the sum means to add everything up. So I'm going to add my vertices. Vertices are just a fancy way to say the corners of my shapes. So I know the vertex of V is 8x minus 4. So I'm going to write 8x. So first I'm going to write my equation. So that's the vertex of V plus the vertex of x, which is 7x plus 4, plus the vertex of W, which is 60 degrees. And that equals 180 because I was told that that's what the sum is, 180. Should be degrees. Okay, so now according to my list, when I'm solving equations, the first thing I should consider is combining like terms and then move the variables to one side. Well, they are all on one side, so that's not much of an issue. So I'm going to combine my like terms. I see an x here, an x there, and that is it. So I have an 8x. There's nothing to distribute. 8x plus 7x gives me a 15x. And I'm going to combine my constants, and I'm going to use, when you're doing everything with pencil, I do like a double line there and there. So I have a -4 and a +4. Well, they cancel out, so the only thing I have left is a +60. And that equals 180. And now I'm going to circle my variable. They are all on one side. Now I got to move this constant to the other. So I'm going to subtract 60 from both sides. And I get 15x. Bring down my equal sign, and I get 120. Now I'm going to divide 15 from both sides. And that, let's see, gives you 8. So x equals 8. Okay. Now, if I plug in 8 into this x value, so 8 times 8 minus 4 gives me 64 minus 4, so this is 60 degrees. 7 times 8 plus 4. 7 times 8 is 56, plus 4 is 60. And now if I add those up, 60 plus 60 plus 60, I know that adds up to 180. So when you're doing these figures, do a mental check or just kind of do the way I did it and just make sure, did you get that correct? That one is correct. That's a quick way of checking my work. You will have some of these for homework. That's what you tore out yesterday, and you'll have them on your tests. Okay, so now what happens when I have equations with parentheses? Okay, first you want to get rid of them first by dividing or distributing. So I'm going to show you both methods on my second example here. So first I want to distribute this 3. I always want to take care of that first. That 3 that's out here. So that gives me a negative 3x minus 6, because a negative times a positive is a 6, plus 5x equals negative 9. I apologize. There we go. Notice I drew the arrows. I want you to get in that habit to make sure it's taken care of. Now, according to my list, now I should combine my like terms. Okay, so now I have something that's familiar. Signs are different, so I should subtract them, and I have more positives. So I have 2x minus 6 equals negative 9. Here's my variable. Line up your equal signs. I'm going to add 6 to both sides. That's the inverse of subtracting them. And you get, I get 2x equals negative 3. I'm going to divide by 2, and x equals, I'm okay having things, I'm running out of space. X equals negative 3 halves. And I'm not going to be an ogre and have you check fractions. When you get a nice clean whole number, please check your work. Okay. Let's look at this one. I said there was 2 ways of doing them. I could distribute that 2. Notice that the only thing on this side is just to distribute. There isn't a constant added later. Okay, when it's to that point, I could simply distribute, and I get 2 minus 10x. I should have been in there. 10x equals negative 8. Here it is. I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. I get negative 10x equals negative 10. Divide by negative 10, and I get x equals 1. Notice that's my answer for this one. But when I have another method I could do, instead of distributing, I could divide by 2. If it goes in evenly, I use that method, and I don't have to worry about more multiplication. Now I have 1 minus 5x. Remember, as long as you do the same thing to both sides, it's all legal. And negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. I'm going to get this by itself. I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. I get negative 5x equals negative 5. Then I'm going to divide by negative 5. And x equals 1. Notice the answers are the same, but we approached it a little different. So whichever you're comfortable with, if you see it, oh, this goes in evenly, use that method. I'm okay with that, so I wanted to show you that. Sorry. Okay, so we have equations with fractions. Again, we talked about the multiplicative inverse. When I use that, it becomes 1. So the multiplicative inverse of 2/3 would be 3 over 2. If I multiply that by its inverse, I will get everything cancels, and I just get 1x. This one, you want to see it as a negative 1m over 3, or negative 1/3 m, same way. So now looking at this, the first thing I'm going to do is I could, let's see, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to first distribute that 1/3, okay? I can multiply everything by 3. That's another method using my clearing fractions notes. That will show you later. I don't think you've seen those yet, so sidebar. Okay, so I have 4. That 4 is not distributed because he's not touching this parentheses. So I have 4. A negative times a negative is a positive. 1/3 of 9, it's like you're dividing by 3, and I get 3x. And negative times a positive is a negative. And 1/3 of 6, So if sidebar, so think of it, oh yeah, Ms. McCarthy, I have 1/3 times 6. Well, I could multiply across and I get 6 divided by 3, which is 2. Okay, if you could do that in your head, totally fine. Okay, and that equals 5. Now I'm going to combine my like terms. Oh, I see these constants. I'm going to combine those first. I'm going to put that 3x in front, and then 4 minus 2 is plus 2 equals 5. And now I'm going to isolate that variable, subtract 2 from both sides, and I get 3x equals 3. Oh, what a beautiful problem. I'm going to divide by 3, and x equals 1. Okay. I didn't have room to check there. Okay, I'm going to distribute. So looking at this one, here I could distribute that 2/3. Or in like our previous problems, I could multiply this by 3/2, but it doesn't go in evenly over here. So I'm not going to do that option. So I'm going to distribute 2/3 times m is 2/3 m. See, this pen works. This is not an iPad. This is my Dell, which I love. And I'm going to do 2/3 times a -6. Again, sidebar. Chicken scratch over here. I have 2/3 times a -6. Always deal with the signs first. A positive times a negative is a negative. Now, here I think of it as, let's do 12 over, and 3 times 1 is 3, and 12 divided by 3 is 4, and I get -9 on this side. Equal signs are lined up. My work looks nice and tidy. So I'm going to circle that. I'm going to add 4 to both sides. Oh, I should have done it over here. And that goes away, and I get 2/3 m equals -5. Now, I'm going to use the multiplicative inverse, or simply multiply by the reciprocal. As long as I do the same thing to both sides, totally legal. Okay, so 3 times 2 is 6, 2 times 3 is 6, and I'm left with a 1m. That's what we wanted. And I'm going to multiply across. So that gives me a -15/2, and I'm happy with that improper fraction. That's totally acceptable. I can't simplify that 15/2, so I'm good. Oh, yeah, we can. Here we go. Next one. So here I could use the no. I'll just do it this way. Okay, since I have a common denominator, I'm just going to focus on the top. 2 minus 1 is 1, m, and their common denominator is 3. So that simplifies to 1/3 m plus 14 equals 8. Then I'm going to subtract 14, and that gives me a -6. Crosses out, and I get 1/3 m. Now I'm going to multiply by its multiplicative inverse. Use that property, or just multiply by reciprocal. This becomes a 1m. We don't need the 1. And a negative times a I should do this. A negative times a positive is a negative, and 6 times 3 is 18. Now, I could check my work. If this was a test, you bet I'm going to check it, and I'll show you how I would do that. So I'm going to check my work. I write the original problem in. I know I have fractions, but it goes in evenly, so it's not so bad. So I have 2/3. Here's my check. 2/3. And every time I see an m, I'm going to replace it with the answer I got. Okay. Minus 1/3 and the answer that I got. You probably don't have space here, huh? Maybe at the bottom. Plus 14. Remember, I'm going to simplify only one side. Well, I know 3 goes into 18 6 times, so 2 times a negative 6 is a negative 12. 3 goes into 18 again, 6 times, so super easy. Negative 1 times 6 is a negative 6 plus 14. Continue to simplify. I got negative 18 plus 14 gives me a 4. Did it check? It did not. So I have to check again. I dropped a negative. So I always check, did I enter the right number? I dropped again. Didn't I do that twice? It's so bad. So that gives me a plus, which changes this answer here. That gives me, let's see, that gives me a 4. And now 4 plus 14 is 8. Phew, my answer wasn't wrong. It was just me plugging in my values. So even I make mistakes twice. I bring down that 18. That side is simplified. It checks. That means my answer is so happy. Good job. Now let's see. Let's review our checklist. When you're isolating the variable is your goal. Get rid of the parentheses first by distributing or divide, whichever you're most comfortable with. Could you combine like terms or all variables on one side and the constants on the other? Now, this is not in your notes, so you're going to have to improvise, so please add this. So does this satisfy the equation? You do have an Excel that asks that question. Think of it, here's my answer. Does my answer check? Okay, so I'm going to take my original equation, minus 7. Now, if there is not a work page in your packet, you could use the digital pen in iExcel or scratchy paper. Okay, totally fine. So I'm going to put in my answer, which is 4, and then just do your chicken scratch. I'm not collecting that unless there's a work page in your weekly packet. And then using order of operations, remember I'm going to do one side. I have 3 times 4 is 12. And I'm going to bring down minus 7. And 12 minus 7 is 5. Does that side equal 10? It doesn't. So this means no, it does not satisfy the equation. So that's what it's asking. Okay, is this an answer? So, okay, so they're giving you 2 numbers to check, and you're going to pick which one does check. Okay, all right, everyone, I miss you all.